Chapter 1, 1939. Warsaw, Poland, Linchpin. Knock, knock, knock. Each thump upon the family's front door reverberated through their hearts, instilling a sense of urgency and fear. Josef Rothenberg had diligently studied the shifting political landscape in Germany and prepared his family for the day when their preparations would be put to the ultimate test. The mighty knocking grew louder. Josef's mind raced with anxiety. He had spent countless hours analyzing the rise of extremism, foreseeing the dangers that lay ahead. Now, with the resounding knocks echoing in their ears, he knew it was. Now, just a month after the fall of Warsaw, Poland, to Nazi Germany, Josef's heart raced as he heard the powerful knocks on his front door. He exchanged a worried glance with his wife, their anxiety mounting. The voice on the other side of the door, speaking in German, sent a chill down their spines. They understood the words. On behalf of the Führer, you must submit to inspection. Josef knew that the fall of Warsaw to Nazi Germany had brought immense upheaval and uncertainty to their lives. The city had recently endured a brutal occupation, with the Nazi regime imposing strict control over all aspects of daily life. People were being rounded up, families torn apart, and an atmosphere of fear pervaded the air. The knocks grew more forceful, demanding immediate attention. Josef's mind raced, considering the potential consequences of refusing or delaying their compliance. It was clear that resistance would only invite more trouble for his family. Reluctantly, he motioned for his wife and children to stay put, and cautiously approached the door. Holding back his own fears, Josef replied, "Coming," while walking over to his wife, placing one hand on her hip and other to her cheek, whispering, "This is why I changed everything years ago," then softly kissing her forehead as she nodded. While slowly releasing her, he focused on every movement of his fingertips across her skin, just in case it was to be his last, before turning to make his way to the door. Even though he predicted this day, it didn't prevent fear from boiling up inside as he turned the knob, opening the door to reveal two heavily armed men in black uniforms. Josef was met with a group of uniformed German soldiers, their presence both intimidating and foreboding. One of the soldiers, an officer, stepped forward and reiterated the earlier command. "You must submit to inspection." With a heavy heart, Josef nodded, signaling his compliance. The soldiers entered their home, conducting a thorough search of each room, their eyes scanning for anything that might be deemed suspicious or subversive. Josef's family watched nervously, their faces etched with fear. Josef's eyes focused on a misshapen skull located just above their shiny black bills of their hats, then to the two silver lightning bolts on their collars. "Good day, Herr. How may I assist you today?" Josef inquired as if he was somehow glad to see them. Without replying, they began entering while Jose did not hesitate to step aside, allowing them unrestricted passage. Now he stood pleased that he made the difficult decision to change their family name due to the escalating persecution of Jews in Germany. Josef often found himself grappling with a profound internal struggle that persisted for years after. Changing their family name was not a choice taken lightly. It was a desperate attempt to protect themselves from the increasing hostility faced by Jews in Nazi Germany. Josef understood that their original Jewish surname could mark them as targets for further persecution and endanger their lives. Yet despite the practicality of the decision, Josef couldn't shake the emotional weight it carried. "I am Untersturmführer Oskar. Are you Jose und Anita Roche?" the lead SS officer asked. "Yeah, and our zwei sons Ernst and Victor," Josef replied, feeling thankful they created new documents and moved from their home hundreds of miles away to Warsaw years ago, completing their new identity. Looking over to the two boys, then back to his book, "Our records show you are Christian, ja?" asked Oskar, while confirming information provided in a book he held. "Yeah, oui," Jose replied, but was halted abruptly by a raised hand from SS Oskar. "What is it that you do, Herr Roche?" Oskar asked without looking up from his book. "Accounting," Jose stated, learning quickly that no other information was desired. Good. Your skills will be required by the Reich. Is this a problem?" SS Oskar asked, challenging Jose to show allegiance to the Third Reich. Wunderbar, das gut. I look forward to assisting the Reich, Jose replied, knowing it was the only correct response that wouldn't lead to execution or labor camp, but judging from Oscar's reaction, it could have been better. Looking up from his book for the first time since opening it, Oscar snapped to with his boots clapping together, staring locking eyes with Jose standing before him. Das Reich does not need your assistance. Das Reich demands it. Josef stood wanting nothing more than for this moment to pass. Ja, Untersturmführer Oscar, forgive me. While speaking, Josef glanced to his wife and sons for comfort and strength. Instead, he felt more concern after spotting his oldest son Victor seemingly captivated by the two black uniformed soldiers. Suddenly, he noticed silence had fallen over the room, and he had been staring at Victor long enough for Oscar to take notice. How old is der Junge? Oscar asked in a voice that caused Josef's heart to beat faster. Victor is only 13, Herr Oscar. Is he educated? Oscar asked Victor directly. In order to prevent his son from conversing with men from the Schutzstaffel, Josef spoke first. Ja, I and their mother. Nein! Oscar snapped loudly, causing many to suddenly take a deep breath before continuing. Interrupt me again and das Reich will no longer have any use for you. Understand? This time speaking as if they had been friends for years, a tone which made his subtle threat more terrifying. It was a message well received as Josef displayed with a single nod in response. Satisfied Josef would no longer interrupt, Oscar turned back to where Victor sat alongside his little brother near a coal-burning stove for warmth. See educated, Herr Victor? Quickly Victor stood with excitement, not really comprehending what the world has become. Ja, meine Mutter und Vater teach us both, pointing to his little brother who had yet made eye contact with the two men. Sehr gut. Would you like to work for me und das Reich? Oscar asked. Looking from Oscar to his father, then mother with a large smile on his face, he responded with, Ja, meine Herr. As his father wanted nothing more than to scream, No, something he knew would certainly lead to his quick departure, never to be seen again. You will assist me tomorrow, Ja? Oscar asked to know by the excited expression on Victor's face what his reply would be. Just as he suspected, with young Victor replied, Yeah, Herr Oscar. Oscar gave a slight smirk before writing in his book and returning his attention back to Victor's father. You and Jung Victor report to 25 Schuche Avenue for assignment in das Morgen. Ja? Raising an eyebrow up almost under his hat as if daring a negative response. Ja, sehr gut in das Morgen, Untersturmführer Oscar. Danke, Josef replied quickly. Slowly, Oscar looked from Josef to around the room, as if taking stock of its contents till his eyes landed back on Victor. Walking over, Oscar placed his book to the inside of his coat before stopping in front of Victor, where he placed his left hand upon the young boy's shoulder while looking down, smiling. Without saying another word, Oscar turned, quickly signaling for his subordinate to follow. As his hard-soled boots knocked against hardwood floors, he exited. As Josef stirred from his uneasy slumber, the weight of the impending day descended upon him like an oppressive shroud. Despite the apparent triumph of their forged identities, an unforeseen and disconcerting revelation about his son Victor gnawed at him incessantly. Josef had never fathomed that their painstakingly crafted new lives would come to be shadowed by the disheartening reality that Victor had become entangled in the folds of the Reich itself, the very regime they had assumed false identities to evade, the very system that had instilled fear deep within their souls. Josef held little concern that Victor would intentionally unveil their concealed identity. Their sons had been mere children when Josef and Anita had embarked on the arduous journey of altering the course of their family name, rendering their prior life a fragment of memory. Yet Josef's apprehension bore weight in another realm, the responsibilities that might be placed upon Victor and the potential adversaries he could find himself pitted against. Sensing the bite of the air's chill, Josef was acutely aware that the fire's warmth needed replenishing. With a deliberate slowness, he slid himself free from the comforting cocoon of blankets, his feet encountering the welcoming chill of waiting slippers as they brushed against the sides of his feet, then floor. Enveloping himself in the embrace of a substantial housecoat, he cast his gaze across the room, its metamorphosis stark since the Reich's ominous incursion. Where once a simple bed stood, it now bore the dual role of impromptu kitchen table, its surface worn from the multiple functions it now served, a poignant testament to the changed circumstances they found themselves in. His eyes traversed further, settling upon the transformed living room. In this altered reality, his sons now lay, nested in makeshift beds, fashioned from a tangle of blankets and cushions, reminders of their family's fortitude in the face of adversity. Yosef's heart sank as he took in the sight, knowing that their current circumstances were likely to deteriorate further. The invasion had brought not only physical discomfort, but also a deep sense of fear. The Reich's presence meant increased surveillance, restrictions, and the constant threat of danger. Despite challenges and the uncertain future, Yosef remained resilient. He knew he had to stay strong for his family, offering them whatever comfort and support he could amidst the turmoil. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders, but he was determined to protect his loved ones and navigate the treacherous path that lay ahead. Yosef knelt down to tend to the fire. The crackling sound provided a brief moment of warmth and reassurance. It reminded him that even in the darkest of times there was still a glimmer of hope. With a heavy heart but a steadfast spirit, he steeled himself for the challenges they would face, knowing that their strength as a family would be their greatest asset. "Father, is it time to go?" a sleepy Victor asked as his father walked over to stoke the fire. "9. Sleep, mine son." Yosef felt his emotions boiling up at thoughts of his son working for the Nazis while placing coal on the fire. Over the next hour, with every push of his steel poker embers rose and crackled, turning into small then larger flames, as did the hate within him for their invaders. Before he noticed, a tear splashed onto the hot stovetop, with its dying sizzle echoing throughout as a rooster calling for sunrise. "Now, father?" Victor asked. Quickly using his collar, Yosef whipped all others away and pushed his feelings down, vowing to never lose control of them again. "Yeah, get ready and Mutter will cook," he told his son with an approving tone, fully aware that with Victor working for German military, any negativity could result in catastrophic consequences. During times like this, perception is everything, so he and his wife went out of their way to show support of the German invasion while near their children. The morning unfolded in its customary fashion, much like the days that had become the norm under the shadow of the German occupation. Anita's two sons commenced their day, tending to the rituals of removing and straightening bedding, tidying their surroundings, and partaking in breakfast. Yet, this morning bore a subtle divergence, notably in their choice of attire. Anita, as was her steadfast routine, took it upon herself to ensure that every garment adorning her two boys was impeccably presented. She wielded a well-heated iron, its surface heated over the stove until it emanated a gentle warmth, ready to combat the stubborn creases that dared mar the fabric. With skilled precision, she navigated the iron over the clothing, coaxing out any wrinkles that dared linger. Beyond her mastery of the iron, Anita's nimble fingers addressed more than just wrinkles. She deftly remedied broken seams, employing her sewing prowess to mend the fabric's integrity. No loose thread or unraveling seam would persist under her watchful eye. A diligent sweep with a soft brush eradicated any clinging lint or stray hairs that might have dared to take refuge on the cloth. Anita's meticulous attention to detail, often dismissed as mundane by some, stood as a symbol of her unwavering commitment to her family's dignity and presentation amidst the trying circumstances they found themselves in. In these seemingly mundane acts, Anita exhibited her unyielding love and care for her sons. Through her efforts, she conveyed not just the importance of proper attire, but also the deeper value of pride, resilience, and a refusal to succumb to the dehumanizing effects of occupation. So, the morning continued, reshaped by Anita's determined hands, an unspoken vow against the encroaching oppression. The simple act of preparing her sons for the day ahead became a profound declaration of her unwavering spirit, her quiet resistance, and her dedication to preserving a semblance of normalcy amidst the tumultuous reality they faced. Yosef watched as his wife laughed while dressing Victor for the day, all the while wondering how long it would be before it vanished. "Come, Victor, we must be on our way," Yosef said while placing a hand on the boy's shoulder before giving Anita a smile and kiss goodbye. Navigating the cloak of pre-dawn darkness, they embarked on their trip at an hour when most of the world still slept. The choice to set forth in obscurity was deliberate, an attempt to convey a semblance of respect by their arrival at the first light of day. Despite the early hour, their commitment to this appearance of reverence spurred them forward. Stepping into the dimly illuminated world, Joseph's heart swelled with a measure of gratitude. Their corner of the city had been spared the ravages of the German bombardment that had reduced much of Warsaw to rubble. In a landscape now scarred by devastation, their home stood as a haven of relative preservation. This fortune, however small, was a stark reminder of the relentless brutality faced by others in neighboring districts. With a hand firm yet tender, Joseph clasped Victor's smaller hand. Together, they crossed the threshold of their front door, embracing the unknown expanse of the pre-dawn hours. The feeble glow of a modest light source guided their way, casting just enough radiance to trace a narrow path through their courtyard. This path, well-worn and familiar, led them to the sidewalk that traced their street. The shroud of darkness, their footsteps were a testament to their unwavering determination. They walked with the weight of the times upon them, a shared burden that fortified their steps. Each stride was a gesture of defiance against the occupiers, a proclamation of their resilience and their commitment to each other and their community. The soft glow of their guiding light flickered, casting ethereal shadows that danced around them. In this muted radiance they walked side by side, their connection unbroken even in the obscurity of the hour. As they ventured forth into the dim embrace of dawn, Joseph and Victor's presence stood as a testament to the indomitable spirit that refused to be extinguished, even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Almost jumping with excitement, Victor asked, "Father, how far is it?" Just then the sidewalk in front of their home lit up bright from headlights. As they neared cautiously, he responded, "Probably not long as we planned." Step by step they approached the car, its headlights casting an eerie glow that seemed to intensify with each passing moment. Every footfall Joseph took was accompanied by an escalating heartbeat, the rhythm echoing the frantic pace of his thoughts. Were their true identities exposed? Was this the moment their carefully woven tapestry of secrets would unravel? A deluge of questions cascaded through his mind like a waterfall in a storm. The unknown possibilities thundered around him, threatening to drown out rationality. The unsettling stories of families disappearing into the night clawed at his consciousness. An entire existence, swallowed by darkness, leaving behind only a haunting void. His grip on Victor's hand grown tight, a tangible lifeline in the swirling uncertainty. The raw intensity of his fear was etched onto his face, his eyes reflecting his thoughts of dread. Every ounce of his being was prepared to surge into motion at the slightest hint of trouble, to yank Victor along, their legs churning like piston-driven engines in a desperate escape. Yet, even in their shared effort to evade capture, the bitter truth remained. As much as they ran, as fast as they fled, the odds of survival were painfully slim when attempting to outrun bullets. The stark reality hung over them like a shadowy specter, an unspoken truth that contrasted the hope in Joseph's grip on Victor's hand. The illuminated car represented both an opportunity to escape and a perilous snare. The light that revealed their path also cast the longest shadows, magnifying their vulnerability. In taking those last few steps, the strength of their connection and the weight of their survival instincts coalesced. Each heartbeat was that of defiance, each step a testament to their tenacity. In the face of the unknown, they pressed forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, driven by an unyielding desire to continue breathing despite the suffocating grip of fear. "Guten Morgen," one of the dark figures said, opening the car door for them to get inside. Though his tone was kind, Joseph was still ready to run, while slowly entering after his son. Untersturmfuhrer Oscar, we appreciate the ride, but we were ensuring an early arrival by leaving early. Victor and I are extremely excited about being helpful. Joseph said, doing his best to seem very appreciative, even though it created a foul taste in his mouth. Gut, is all Oscar said, not just then, but the entire ride to headquarters. Once the car stopped out front, Oscar exited and walked around, opening Victor's door. You will come with me and Franz will escort you to your duties. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Oscar turned with the Victor and walked to the tall building. It wasn't till they had entered when the driver turned off the vehicle, saying one word, and not in the pleasant tone he had greeted them, Guten Morgen, earlier. No. This time, with a demanding tone, he said one word, Come. Joseph quickly exited and began following Franz to the same door Oscar had taken his son, unable to figure out how come they all didn't go in at the same time. Once inside, Franz pointed to a line of empty chairs, ordering, Sitzen. Doing as told, Joseph sat, trying not to look around or make any noise, but as the hours passed, it became much more difficult. His discomfort grew with each passing minute. Looking down a hallway, he imagines how nice it would be to stretch his legs by walking down it, but quickly dismissed the thought. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, with the wooden chairs growing even more uncomfortable. With each person that came and went, he hoped they would have him do something else, almost anything else, to get up from the chairs. Hello, Father. You like? Joseph was so happy to hear his son's voice, but after looking in his direction, he didn't recognize his son, but what looked like a very young German soldier, all in a black uniform. A battle raged inside Joseph's mind between truth and survival of his family. For him, it was an easy one to win. Looks great. You're almost dressed the same as Untersturmfuhrer Oscar. Yeah, I will be helping him today. Is this okay, Father? Little Victor asked, excited about what they might be doing. Absolutely. Whatever Untersturmfuhrer needs. Joseph replied, knowing there was nothing he could say otherwise that wouldn't end with him imprisoned. At this point, he was just happy to be standing. Victor will be occupying me with the Jewish infestation here. Franz will show you to your office, where you will remain till we return. With no other information, Oscar escorted Victor out the door, and as he had spoken, Franz appeared. Follow me. Wasn't difficult for Joseph to tell the man was not a bit talker. Looking back to Victor as he followed, he began wondering had he made the right decision for his family, now seeing his son help those who would have done them harm, knowing their true identity. Years passed, and the fortunes of the Roche family underwent a transformation, evolving from the trials of earlier days into a state of comparative abundance. Their circumstances stood in stark comparison to the struggles endured by their neighbors. In a landscape where many grappled to stave off the chill of the seasons and secure sustenance, the Roche household found themselves basking in relative comfort. While the community wrestled with scarcities, the Roche family's home radiated warmth, a haven where chilly winds dared not encroach. Their abode had become a sanctuary of coziness, a stark contrast to the biting cold that gripped the surroundings. The privilege of consistent heating was not lost on them, a testament to their journey from austerity to a more secure existence. In a time where empty bellies were a painful reality for many, the Roche household boasted the blessing of nourishment. Their table bore the bounty of fresh eggs, a symbol of sustenance that whispered promises of protein-rich meals. Flour, a fundamental component of culinary creation, lay at their fingertips, ready to be transformed into dishes that would delight the palate and soothe the gnawing pangs of hunger. The air delivered fragrant strokes of their culinary creations. Scents of carefully prepared meals wafted through their abode, a fragrant delight that enticed the most famished of stomachs. Smoke gracefully spiraled from their chimney, an ethereal dance that bore witness to the hearth's perpetual glow. Their neighbors, aware of the glaring contrast in their living conditions, knew better than to approach the Roche residence, even as hunger gnawed at their bellies. They had observed the arrival of Untersturmfuhrer Oscar's car each morning, bearing 2 small Nazi flags on each side. The vehicle's distinctive appearance, with the flags positioned before the bright headlights, was impossible to miss, especially when it came to a stop. Victor, having shed his childhood innocence, was always waiting near his father when Untersturmführer Oscar arrived. The purpose of these encounters became evident to the community, as the Roche family seemed to be the recipients of special privileges and resources. The connection between their good fortune and the visits from the Nazi officer became increasingly apparent. The presence of the Nazi flags and the officials' visits highlighted the complexities of their situation. While the Roche family seemingly benefited from their association with the regime, it was a double-edged sword. Their improved living conditions came at the cost of aligning themselves with a system that brought suffering and oppression to their fellow citizens. Yosef's heart weighed heavy with this reality. He understood the sacrifices they were making and the risks they were taking by accepting assistance from a Nazi officer. It was a delicate balance between survival and the moral compromises they were forced to make. They lived with constant fear of being discovered, knowing that their comfort and security could be shattered in an instant. In these challenging times, Yosef sought solace in his family, finding strength and support within their tight-knit unit. They leaned on each other, navigating the complexities of their situation together as they tried to make the best of an impossible circumstance. Yosef noticed changes taking place in his young son almost from the first day after being introduced to his new job working alongside Oscar. First, it was his uniform with black and silver outlines he had been issued, which he also slept in for months. Then slowly Yosef noticed he began pulling away by no longer holding his hand in the morning or playing games with his younger brother. For Yosef, none hurt like not hearing his son say father, but calling him by his name, Yosef. He could see his son had become what he had feared would destroy his family, only instead of them all being sent to concentration camps, they became part of the evil. Victor called out to his father, noticeably irritated by not immediately receiving a response. Looking up from documenting one of many paintings brought in by Oscar and his son, undoubtedly from another Jewish family, disdain for what his son was doing could be felt in his reply, "Yes, Victor." "Oh, Yosef, do you not have stomach for what has to be done anymore?" Victor condescendingly asked his father. The last 5 years had changed Victor into something he had never anticipated when he and his wife had decided to change their names. Yosef could feel he possibly had lost his son for good, but was not prepared to give up on him. Just been a long day cataloging all these artworks for shipping back to Berlin. Good. We have a long day ahead tomorrow. Oscar and I are going to gather up some scientists that are being sent west for safety. It seems from reports many have been targeted or defecting, but we shall make sure it ends. Victor spoke as if he knew more than he was saying. Concerned for what his son had become, Yosef thought of telling his son of their true faith and namesake, only to push it down once again for fear of his other son and wife becoming victims. Instead, Yosef knew his son only came into this area of headquarters where had been assigned when it was time to go home. "I'll put this ledger away and we can leave. Are there any stops on the way home or—" Yosef was cut off by Franz calling out, "Herr Victor! Herr Victor!" Quickly, Victor turned to the open door where Franz appeared. "Yeah, what's the matter?" "We have orders to move tonight. Here, take this, Herr Victor. Untersturmführer Oscar requests you return." Franz informed young Victor while handing him a holster containing a PO-8 Luger 9mm. Victor's eyes lit up at first sight of a pistol he had desired for many years, and just as he placed his hand upon it, they heard thunderous explosions in the distance. "What is that?" Yosef asked, suddenly very worried with how fast things suddenly ramped up. He had been used to hearing small booming attacks by the rebellion, but this was much different. Ignoring Yosef's question, Franz looked down to the boy. "Go!" pointing down the hallway. "You can return home. The boy will be much later." Victor was still close enough to hear Franz and smiled as he picked up speed while grasping tight to his new Luger pistol. All these years working closely with Oscar hunting down fugitives from the Reich and confiscating riches from Jews had made him feel invincible. Now thoughts of what tonight's mission meant brought visions of one day having SS silver lightning bolts placed upon his collar. Exiting the headquarters building, Victor quickly spotted Victor's vehicle and suddenly froze as explosions rattled the area with fireballs reaching above rooftops just blocks away. "Keep moving!" Franz shouted, grabbing Victor's upper arm as he passed. That alone was enough to snap him to the task at hand, and once again he began taking the lead, outrunning Franz till they both approached Oscar. "Ah, glad you could join us, Victor. Jump in and we have somewhere to be." Oscar half grinned while rubbing his MP-40 machine gun. In less than a minute, they and 3 other trucks raced down city streets while Victor fought to attach his Luger pistol holster on his belt. After many tries, it was finally secure where he wanted it, and when he finally looked up, he marveled at just how fast they were moving. "We are almost there. Stay close to me, Air Victor, and be on guard. There may be intruders," Oscar informed him while checking his own weapon. Yeah. Victor struggled to even respond a little with all excitement boiling up inside him. For most of the trip, he wondered where they were headed but didn't dare to ask. But as they neared the building, he knew as headlights shined upon a small sign. It was a Reich research facility. He assumed their mission that was to take place in the morning to secure local scientists and move them back to Berlin had been moved up due to bombing. Readied himself to follow, Oscar placed his hand on his pistol holder, pressing it to his side to prevent it from flopping, as he ran to keep up with others as they came to a stop. "Move! Everyone off the trucks and surround the building. Nobody leaves. You all have a list of those we are securing. Find them and place them on the truck. Move out!" Oscar shouted as each man obeyed every word. Victor looked forward to a day he held such power, watching as soldiers ran in all directions. As told, he stayed close to Oscar, just where he had been for over 4 years now. Keeping pace with every step, nothing was going to separate him from Oscar's side as they marched up to 2 large doors. Victor almost ran into Oscar as the father figure stopped suddenly, rose his weapon, and began firing, instantly blowing door latches to pieces. Victor's heart began pounding with excitement as they began moving through destroyed doors to the inside. The large open area just inside was dark, except for car lights shining inside and occasional fireball illuminating areas as bombs exploded. Along the far wall, Victor caught a glimpse of movement, but did not think it his place to speak. Suddenly, a figure sprung out of darkness with a pistol in hand, knocking him down and placing it to Oscar's head. Looking up, Victor could make out only a red and white stripped patch attached to the man's uniform, as flashes of light flickered. Suddenly, more men appeared, with some restraining the very scientists they had come to retrieve. Suddenly, it was clear to Victor why this mission had been moved. Slowly, he reached down, raising his holster flap, sliding his hand and grasping the pistol handle, and waited for his chance to prove himself to Oscar. "The building is surrounded. You have nowhere to go." Oscar spoke with a powerful voice, still unafraid, as the man's pistol kissed his temple. From darkness, another man stepped forwarded. "You Nazi bastards think we came here without contingency plans that didn't consist of rotting in one of your prison camps. The war is coming to an end, and if you want to survive, I suggest you drop your weapon." He spoke in flawless German. Slowly, Oscar turned to face Victor lying on the floor, making eye contact with his young protege, before speaking with a pistol still to his head. "Herr Victor, you are true SS. Never forget a wolf doesn't make friends with a rat that always tries to take its food." Gripping tight his MP-40 machine gun, he began turning quickly, raising the weapon and firing simultaneously. Flame flew from its muzzle as bullets cut through the darkness, striking one of the captive scientists. Victor's gaze remained fixed, as darkness seemed to momentarily cede its dominion, only to swiftly reconquer every inch of territory with each resounding discharge from Oscar's firearm. Emboldened by the urgent need to establish his mettle, he decisively withdrew his pistol from its holster, the weapon's weight both reassuring and exhilarating in his hand. He elevated the pistol, its barrel aligning with the figure standing alongside Oscar. In that pivotal juncture, a surreal stillness enshrouded the scene. Time, ever the capricious element, unfurled in languid elegance, each second stretching as though reluctant to continue its march. The flash of Oscar's weapon, a visceral eruption of illumination, seemed to defy temporal constraints, lingering upon the retina in a dance of lingering brilliance. In this suspended interlude, Victor's heartbeat seemed to synchronize with the cadence of his breath, and his finger hesitated over the trigger, a heartbeat away from altering the course of events. His every sensation, from the cool steel of the pistol's grip to the rush of blood pulsating in his veins, coalesced into an indelible memory of this charged moment. The muzzle flash from Oscar's weapon unfurled a transient luminosity in the darkness. In that fleeting expanse, choices converged, destinies hovered, and the future hung tenuously, awaiting the ignition of the next spark, the next motion, the next pull of a trigger. The harshness of gunfire was intermingled with the distinct sound of bullets impacting the unyielding concrete floor. His weapon steadily ascended. It seemed to harmonize with the very rhythm of battle, a somber dance of chaos. The symphony, however, took a sinister turn as one bullet resulted in a low thud, muffled beneath the noise. This gloomy note was joined by an agonizing scream of pain, a human lament that cut through the dissonance. Curiosity and concern drove Victor's gaze towards the source of the pained cry, his eyes searching for the origin of the anguish. Yet, his quest for information was abruptly disrupted by an intense burst of light, an illumination that emanated from the very direction in which his own pistol was poised. The brilliance of the light momentarily overpowered his vision, leaving his senses awash in a searing glare that seemed to pierce through the tumultuous darkness of the battle. In that moment, as the world became a blinding expanse of white, Victor's awareness seemed to contract, his focus narrowing to the core of his being. The disorienting brightness cloaked the scene, leaving him momentarily suspended in a void between anticipation and uncertainty. As the light eventually faded, retreating like a flash of lightning, Victor's senses gradually regained their footing. Finding himself standing amidst the aftermath of that luminous burst, the echoes of his surroundings once again becoming discernible. His grip tightened around the pistol, his gaze slowly adjusting to the lessened illumination. Despite the disorienting intrusion, his resolve remained steadfast, his senses attuned to the turmoil around him. Turning back towards his intended target, he realized not only had he accidentally fired, but the soldier holding a pistol to Oscar's head had done so as well. Light waned beneath the dissipating smoke of their explosions, Victor's gaze fixed on the man before him. The details etched into his memory as if burned there. Vividly, a unit patch materialized through the haze. Its red and white stripes came to life, contrasted with a striking blue square nestled in the upper corner. The sight branded itself onto Victor's consciousness, an indelible mark, just as Oscar's lifeless fall had branded his senses with shock. Oscar, once animated, now lay inert, his head askew in an unnaturally final angle. The scene ignited an inferno within Victor, a surge of unbridled rage that eclipsed his senses. In the grip of this all-consuming fury, Victor's fingers closed around his pistol's trigger. The metallic thumbing of rapid fire reverberated through the room. But his righteous wrath was abruptly halted, as another burst of light erupted from the muzzle of his pistol's target, a blinding retort. The world condensed into these moments, each flash, every heartbeat, an unyielding contest between fury and fate. The tableau of violence and retaliation played out in stark contrast to the fading daylight, a grim ballet of consequences. And in that fraction of time, as light and smoke coalesced into transient memory, Victor found himself at the crossroads of raw vengeance and the chilling reality that met it. The image of the unit patch remained etched, a tragic emblem of loss. Minutes later, dazed and unable to see, Victor opened one eye to see Franz placing him back in their car. "Oscar?" he hesitantly asked. "9," is all the response Franz provided, yet Victor knew just what it intel. The more conscious he became, the more pain he felt in his face, where a bullet had struck his cheekbone and ran upwards along his skull above his ear. Hate boiled within as images of Oscar's murderer's patch flashed repeatedly in his mind. If I had only fired sooner, Victor thought, reaching down to his pistol holster only to find it empty. "Halt! Mein Luger!" He began to shout only to be reminded of his wound. Though his pain subsided from feeling cold steel of his Luger, as Franz slid it along the seat to his side. Sliding his hand around its checkered grips, Victor placed it back in his holster just as they pulled in front of SS headquarters. I must report back to Berlin. Get cleaned up. Oscar wouldn't want you to be such a mess. Franz informed him while he stared into the smoke-filled night, from booming that could be seen through darkness. Without another word, Victor nodded slightly, opened his door, and went inside. Each step brought back memories spent with Oscar and power he felt when around him. But now the hallways contained nothing. "Victor! You're hurt!" Feeling a tear run down his face and burning in his wound, Victor looked up to his father. Oscar is dead. "Forget him. The world is better off without such a man. Come, let's get you cleaned up and tend to your wound," Yosef said, reaching to wrap his arm around Victor. "No, it is not. He was a great man," Victor shouted back, shoving his arm away. "Son, what that man had you doing was not right. You must see that. He was evil." Yosef could see things had been allowed to play out for much too long. With Oscar dead and what was most certainly were Soviets attacking, he felt it time to tell Yosef his true history. Grabbing his son with one hand on each shoulder, Yosef stood facing him, looking directly into his eyes. "Your birth name is not Rosh, it is Rothenberg. We are Jewish, not Christian. Your mother and I wanted to protect you boys from what was coming, and..." A blast echoed down the long hallway. Amidst the swirling smoke escaping the barrel of his Luger, Victor stood frozen, aghast, as he locked eyes with his father. The horror etched on his father's face was undeniable, his stance faltering until he collapsed to his knees. "I am a wolf, not a rat,"